Hey there, Robert John Hadfield from Audio Mover here again, and we're going to do another video today on a great record. And this is one of the classic albums from the 80s. And you know, a lot of times, a lot of the videos we've been making, we've been taking apart cassette tapes, and we have different things about all the different analog media. And we decided, you know, maybe we should start making some videos about some of my personal favorite type of analog media, which is records. And so that's why we've been doing this little series. And this, for me, is one of my favorite albums from the 80s. And I think for a lot of people, it ranks up there. For me personally, this one has a special place in my heart because this was the first concert that I ever went to. My dad took me to see Journey in concert, and they were on this tour. And so it was back in the early 80s. I think it was 1982 when they came through Denver, Colorado. They played at a place called McNichols Arena, which no longer is there. It was replaced by what many of you may have heard of, Pepsi Center. And so anyway, it was a lot of great bands that played there, but Journey toured through there, and I saw them on this tour, and they were just incredible. Now this album was not just a great album, but it was special for several different reasons because of some pretty significant lineup changes that had happened that got them to this point where this really became kind of the peak of Journey's career was really this album. This album cover, though, kind of carried on the space theme that they'd had through a lot of their covers, and this little scarab, this kind of like spaceship that you'd seen on several of the albums prior to this. But they carried it on here. Of course, they had the unique way that they wrote the word Journey and Escape here on the cover. One of the cool things about this particular cover, though, and that I really loved, was the fact that this, let's see if you can see that in the record as I shine the light across it, but it's embossed. All of this, whatever, you know, kind of cracked glass, which I think is what it's supposed to look like, it's raised, it's embossed. Now, not all the prints of this album had it embossed. I don't know if it was just the first prints or what, but there are some that don't have that. So anyway, it's kind of cool if you have one that's embossed, which this one is. And so this thing came out, I think it was in 1981. Now, what was so important about this album? Now I don't. So okay, let's back up a little bit. I've asked this question to a lot of people before, and very few people actually know this little interesting piece of trivia. And what it is where did the band Journey come from? Not where they came from physically, but how did they become a band? And the answer to this question is that Journey was a spin-off band from Santana. A lot of people don't know that, but Gregg Rolie, who was the original keyboardist of Journey, had been and singer, had been the keyboardist and one of the singers in Santana. And if you ever heard the song Black Magic Woman, that was Gregg Rolie who playing the keyboards and singing that song. And Gregg Rolie is still performing today. I think he was in Ringo Starr's All-Star Band a few years ago touring. And the other person that came from Santana was Neal Schon, the guitar player. And Neal Schon is really the only current original member of the band that's with the group right now. So Steve Perry wasn't in the band when it first started. So Journey, once again, a spin-off band from Santana. Their music, they put out 3 albums that really went nowhere because it had that similar kind of jazz fusion rock kind of feel to it, and it just didn't happen for them. They were going nowhere, and I think they were in danger of losing their whatever record contract they had. And at one point their manager came into them and said, "We're getting you a new singer, and here he is." And it was Steve Perry. And so Steve Perry became the new singer of Journey. For a few albums, he and Gregg Rolie would go back and forth on lead vocals. And if you go back and listen to some of these songs like "That's the Same Way She Loved Me, and That's the Same Way She Loved Me," that's Gregg Rolie and Steve Perry singing off of each other. And so Steve Perry then, they put out several albums with Steve Perry and Gregg Rolie kind of holding that lead vocal position together. And then Gregg Rolie, and I've heard interviews where he talked about this, he kind of just couldn't handle it anymore. You know, he really was he has a nice voice. Unfortunately, it's not like Steve Perry's. Steve Perry's has the voice. But he did have a great singing voice, and of course he was had been the lead singer for Santana and was a really important musician. And he got to the point that, from what I understand, and from listening to him talking about it in interviews, he just didn't like sharing the limelight very much, and just wanted to move on. So Gregg Rolie left the band, and then Steve Perry, of course, then became the main lead singer. This is the first album where Steve Perry was by himself as the lead singer, where Gregg Rolie was gone. Now that was a really important thing that happened with Journey, but there was something arguably even more important that happened at that moment, because Steve Perry was already in the band, but there was another addition. So now that Gregg Rolie was gone, they needed a keyboard player, and they brought in a guy by the name of Jonathan Cain. And Jonathan Cain, prior to this, had been in a band called the Babies. And if you've ever heard John Waite, that was John Waite's band. It was the Babies. And so Jonathan Cain left John Waite's band, the Babies, and then joined Journey. And Jonathan Cain and Steve Perry became this kind of powerhouse as far as creating music together. Now Neal Schon, who's like one of the great guitar players, I don't know that really set well with him, and as time went on, there was a little bit of a power struggle with what was happening. But Steve Perry really made this band so big because of his voice and the songs that came out of this album specifically, that Steve Perry just kind of started taking over all decisions and really running the band. And that's partly why it didn't work out so well, because other people in the band didn't really care for that, and then it caused the problems like you have in a lot of groups. But let's take a look at this album and see why this is so important. When you look at the songs that were on this record, Don't Stop Believin', I mean, come on. It's one of the greatest rock songs ever recorded, and it was incredibly popular when it first came out back in, was it 81, when this album was released, 1981 when it was released. It was extremely popular, but then it was made popular again because it was on the end of, was it The Sopranos, I think? And then all of a sudden, boom, it was huge again. Stone in Love was another just great song, and it featured not just Neal Schon on guitar, but actually Jonathan Cain picked up a guitar during this song too. Great song. And Who's Crying Now, another kind of a slower song. Wonder who's crying now, one heart feels I wanna la la la. Anyway, amazing song. Keep on Running was it was kind of a fast, keep on running. Great tune. Still They Ride, that was another slow tune. Once again, just fantastic. And, now you flip to side 2. Escape, this is my escape, as I'm on my way. Great song. Lay It Down is a great song. Dead or Alive was a great song. Mother, Father was a great song. These are kind of throwaways, though, because they were on side B, and they, unless you're a big Journey fan, you may not have heard these, but they are all excellent pieces of music. But then you get to the last song on side B, and this is what really did it. And it's the song Open Arms. Lying beside you here in the dark. Everybody's heard this song. Now I come to you with open arms. Everybody knows this song. Well, here's the story behind this. Jonathan Cain, who'd been in the Babies, like we said a few minutes ago, was just playing this little thing on the piano, and Steve Perry heard him. This is how the story goes. And it was what would become Open Arms. And so he's sitting here playing this song, and Steve Perry hears it, and he goes, "What is that? It's beautiful." And he says, "Well, it's just the song that I wrote originally to play in the Babies, but John Waite didn't want to use it. Felt it was," I can't remember, he said something really kind of awful about it, like it was this garbage romantic trash or something like that John Waite apparently said about it. And so Steve Perry, and this is, Steve Perry has told the story before. He says, well, that's his loss because we're going to use it. And so he and Jonathan Cain then took this song called Open Arms, wrote it, finished it, recorded it, And it really ended up becoming, I think it to this day may still be their biggest song that they ever put out. And, it was a lot of times on records, you'd put on, the very last song on side B was not always your real strong song. Yet they did that here. And it ended up becoming this just monster hit. I mean, everybody, I'd be surprised, you watching the video right now, if you haven't heard that song dozens of times in your life. Huge song, and probably Journey's #1 biggest song that they ever put out. And so, anyway, just with the song list that was on this album, it's just hard to beat this. Now, I said something about the production a few minutes ago, why Journey Escape was such a big deal, and how the production was so fantastic. And I want to show you something down here at the bottom. And it says, produced by Mike Stone. Now, where have you heard the name Mike Stone before? Mike Stone was the sound engineer on a very famous Queen song that, once again, everybody's heard, and it's the Bohemian Rhapsody. So Mike Stone was the sound engineer on Bohemian Rhapsody. He worked with Queen on a lot of different albums. So this guy was just top shelf pro when it came to music production. Well, it came to engineering and recording. And then as he moved into the producer's chair, he was just incredible. And so, in other people, he produced this album. About a year later or so, he produced Asia's first album, and that was, once again, just another absolutely incredible record. So anyway, Mike Stone, who of Bohemian Rhapsody fame, produced this album. And it probably is one of the reasons that this thing is just as really remarkable and incredible as it is. So let's go ahead and take a look on the inside of this record so you can see what it. This is actually the one that I bought when I was a kid, and it's a little bit beat up, but you'll be able to see what this all looks like inside. So on the inside cover, once again, here's the Journey. There's the little Scarab spaceship, and then here's all the guys in the group. And at this point, so you had Steve Perry right here, Ross Valerie was the bass player, Jonathan Cain, of course, this is the keyboardist that we were just talking about. There's Neil Schon, and then Steve Smith was the drummer. Steve Smith was just an incredibly well respected and very popular, great drummer. So anyway, that's the front of the inside sleeve. And then you flip it over here, and then they have, all the lyrics to all the music. There it talks about Mike Stone again, being the producer. And then, then all the lyrics to all the songs, and then here's the band in these little running poses. So, and then I'll kind of open up the record here too. Oh, and there's the little infinity symbol, which is kind of a tip of the hat back to the old Journey stuff, where Infinity actually was one of their albums, and they had that little character on the cover of a previous album. When you look on the inside, this is one where they actually took the time to do something interesting on the label. And you can see here that they have that little theme from the front of the album, the crashing glass or whatever it is, continuing on here. They put that on the record, and then you can see that there too. Yeah, this this album has seen better days. Anyway, I got this when I was just a kid, and was a huge Journey fan. And then of course my dad took me to see them in on this tour, and it's cool. I wish I could remember more about it, because this was such an important part of especially 80s music history. Anyway, so that's Journey Escape, and I'd be interested, everybody, I think most people really love this album if you're familiar with it, and if you have a particular song that you love off this album, I'd like to hear what it is, because so many songs on here were just absolutely incredible songs. And, when I look back and I go, which one is my favorite? I'm not really sure, because each one of them, especially that first side, is so great. So anyway, let me know what your favorite song is. And if there's other albums you'd like us to talk about, like me to make a video about, put that in the comments, and we'd be happy to happy to take some of your suggestions. And once again, we do these things in the Audio Mover studio. Audio Movers is a company that takes your old audio and videotapes and converts them into digital. So if you have old audio and videotapes, or if you know somebody that does, go to audiomover.com and they can take care of you there, get your order started. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this, and please like and subscribe, and have a fantastic day.
I miss you missing me like you used to, yeah, like you used to. I miss you kissing me like you used to, like only